Traction, a Startup Guide to Getting Customers, by Gabriel Weinberg and Justin Mares. Introduction. Imagine for a moment, it's a bright, sunny day in San Francisco. A major conference is happening, hosted by PayPal, one of the giants of the tech world. Developers, executives, and journalists are all walking toward the entrance, ready for a day of networking and presentations. But as they approach the front doors, they stop. They stare. Because right there, in front of everyone, is a massive, 600-pound block of ice. Frozen inside are hundreds of dollar bills, and big, bold letters spell out a defiant message: PayPal freezes your accounts. Unfreeze your money. This wasn't an accident. It was a carefully planned stunt by a tiny, unknown startup called WePay. They knew that PayPal had a reputation for freezing customer accounts, and instead of buying a boring ad, they did something unforgettable. That single block of ice got them more attention in one day than most startups get in a year. It was clever, it was bold, and most importantly, it worked. It was a sign that something was happening, a sign that customers were paying attention. That sign, my friend, has a name. It's called Traction. Today, we're going to talk about the book that decodes this very idea. It's called Traction, a Startup Guide to Getting Customers, written by two brilliant minds, Gabriel Weinberg and Justin Mares. Gabriel is the founder of the search engine DuckDuckGo, a company that took on Google and is now handling billions of searches a year. He knows a thing or two about getting noticed. This book isn't just theory. It's a practical, real-world guide born from their own successes and failures, and from interviews with over 40 other successful founders. We live in a world where it seems like everyone has an idea for the next big thing. And most people focus all their energy on building the perfect product, polishing every feature, and tweaking every line of code. They fall into what the authors call the product trap, believing that if you just build something great, customers will magically show up. But this book reveals a powerful, almost counterintuitive truth: having a great product is not enough. In fact, the number one reason startups fail isn't a bad product, it's a lack of customers. So, by the end of our time together today, you will understand the fundamental shift in thinking that separates the startups that succeed from the ones that fade away. You'll learn a simple 5-step framework for discovering exactly how to get your own flood of customers, and you'll be introduced to 19 different paths you can take to get there. This isn't just about business, it's about the art and science of getting people to care about what you've built. It's about getting traction. Book summary. Let's start with a scene that plays out in garages and coffee shops all over the world. A small team of founders is huddled around a laptop, fueled by caffeine and ambition. They are working tirelessly, obsessing over their product. They add one more feature, then another. They change the color of a button, redesign the logo, and rewrite the code to make it just a little bit faster. They are convinced that if they can just make the product perfect, the world will beat a path to their door. This is a noble idea. It comes from a place of passion and a desire to create something wonderful. But according to Gabriel Weinberg and Justin Mares, it's also a dangerous illusion. It's the product trap. The hard truth is that almost every failed startup has a product. What they don't have is traction. So what is traction? The authors define it beautifully. Traction is quantitative evidence of customer demand. It's the sign that something is working. If you're building an app, it's your download rate growing every week. If you're selling something, it's customers pulling out their wallets to buy it. If your product is free, it's a rapidly growing user base. Traction is growth. It's the upward curve on a chart that makes investors lean in, that makes talented people want to join your team, and that makes the media want to tell your story. In the world of startups, traction trumps everything. This simple idea leads to the book's first profound lesson: the 50% rule. The authors argue that you should spend 50% of your time on building your product, and the other 50% on getting traction. In parallel. From day one. This feels wrong to most founders. It feels like you're slowing down product development. But in reality, you're speeding up your journey to success. Think about it this way. When you work on traction early, you start getting real feedback from the market. You learn what words people use to describe their problems. You discover which groups of people are most excited about what you're building. You find out if reaching them is even possible, or if it's going to be too expensive. This information is pure gold. It doesn't just help your marketing, it helps you build a better product. Dropbox is a perfect example of this. Early on, they tested search engine marketing. They bought ads on Google to see if people would click. And people did click, but it was costing them over $200 to acquire a single customer for a product that cost only $99. That test, that early attempt at traction, taught them something vital: this path wouldn't work. So, instead of pouring more money into a losing strategy, they pivoted their traction efforts. They focused on viral marketing, building a referral program directly into the product where you could get more free space by inviting friends. That single decision, born from an early traction test, became the engine of their explosive growth. They didn't wait until their product was finished to think about customers. They did both at the same time. So if you agree to spend half your time on traction, a new question immediately appears: where do you start? The world of marketing is vast and confusing. There are so many options. Should you buy ads? Start a blog? Go to events? This is where the heart of the book lies. The authors interviewed dozens of founders and discovered that all successful startups get their customers from one or more of 19 specific channels. 19 ways to get traction. But here's the most critical insight, something that Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal, confirms: you probably won't have a bunch of equally good strategies. It is very likely that one channel is optimal. He says that most businesses get 0 distribution channels to work. Poor distribution, not product, is the #1 cause of failure. But if you can get just one channel to work, you have a great business. If you try for several but don't nail one, you're finished. The challenge, then, is to find that one single best channel for you, right now. How do you do that without wasting all your time and money? This is where the authors introduce their most powerful tool, the Bullseye Framework. Imagine a target with 3 rings. The outer ring, the middle ring, and the bullseye in the center. The framework is a simple, 5-step process to help you find your bullseye, the one traction channel that will unlock your next stage of growth. Step 1 is brainstorm. This is where you force yourself to think outside the box. You take all 19 traction channels, and you brainstorm at least one idea for how you could use each one. Every single one. Even the ones you're biased against. If you're a software engineer, you might be biased against sales or offline ads. If you're a marketer, you might dismiss engineering as marketing. The brainstorm step is designed to counteract these biases. You think, if I had to use trade shows, what could I do? Or what's a crazy unconventional PR stunt we could pull off? You write down every idea, no matter how small or silly it seems. You research what has worked for other companies in your space, and just as importantly, what hasn't. Step 2 is rank. Now you look at your long list of ideas and you start to sort them. You place each of the 19 channels into one of the 3 rings of the bullseye. The outermost ring, let's call it long shots, is for the channels that seem least promising. The middle ring, potential, is for the channels that seem like they could possibly work. And the inner circle, promising, is for the channels that feel the most exciting and have the most potential right now. Usually, only a few channels will feel truly compelling. Step 3 is prioritize. You look at your inner circle and you pick the top 3. Just 3. Why 3? Because testing one at a time is too slow, but testing too many leads to a lack of focus. 3 is the magic number that allows you to run cheap, parallel experiments without spreading yourself too thin. Step 4 is test. This is where the ideas meet the real world. For the 3 channels in your inner circle, you design cheap, fast tests to answer a few key questions. How much will it cost to get a customer through this channel? How many customers are available here? And are these the right kind of customers for us? The goal here is not to get a lot of traction yet. The goal is to get data. You're not running a massive ad campaign. You're running a few cheap ads to see what the click-through rate is. You're not sponsoring a huge conference. You're attending a small meetup to see how people react to your idea. You're spending a few $100s, not thousands, to see which of your 3 prioritized channels shows the most promise. Step 5 is focus. If all goes well, one of the channels you tested will produce promising results. It will feel different from the others. The numbers will look better. The customers will be more engaged. When you find that channel, you focus on it with everything you have. This is your bullseye. Your goal now is to wring every last drop of traction out of this one channel. You become an expert in it. You run more tests, you optimize your messaging, you scale up your spending, and you ride that wave of growth until it starts to flatten out. This is the Bullseye Framework. Brainstorm, rank, prioritize, test, and focus. It's a repeatable process. Once you've maxed out one channel, you can run the framework all over again to find your next bullseye for your next stage of growth. Now, let's talk about the arsenal at your disposal. What are these 19 traction channels? The book dedicates a chapter to each, filled with stories and tactics. We won't go through all of them, but let's explore some of the most powerful and interesting ones to give you a feel for the creative possibilities. Let's group them into a few themes. First, there's what we might call reaching the masses. These are channels for getting your name out there in a big way. This includes public relations PR and unconventional PR. Traditional PR is about getting stories in newspapers, magazines, and on TV. The book explains that the media landscape has changed. It's no longer about pitching the New York Times directly. Stories now filter up. You start with smaller blogs that are easier to get attention from. The bigger outlets read these smaller blogs to find their next story. So you pitch the blogs that the big journalists read, and you let the story climb the ladder. But unconventional PR is where things get really fun. This is about doing something so remarkable that the media can't ignore you. We already talked about WePay's block of ice. Another legendary story is from half.com. To get attention for their launch, they convinced a small town in Oregon, named Halfway, to rename itself half.com for a year. They launched the company on the Today Show with the town's mayor. It was an incredible story that got them national coverage and millions of impressions. DuckDuckGo did something similar. They put up a billboard in Google's backyard that said, "Google tracks you." We don't. That one billboard created a story that doubled their user base. Then you have offline ads and social and display ads. These are your billboards, TV commercials, radio spots, and the banner ads and Facebook ads you see online. Many startups ignore offline ads, thinking they're old-fashioned. But as the book points out, that means there's less competition. The key is tracking. You can use unique phone numbers, special website URLs like yourcompany.com/radio/heps:/www.google.com/search question, mark Q equals https://yourcompany.com/radio, or discount codes to measure how well these ads are working. Social ads, on the other hand, are less about getting an immediate sale and more about generating demand. It's about building an audience over time by creating compelling content and engaging with them, and then, eventually, converting them into customers. Next, Let's talk about a theme we could call earning attention. These channels aren't about buying your way in, they're about creating things of value that naturally draw people to you. This is where search engine optimization, SEO, and content marketing shine. SEO is about getting your website to rank highly in search results. The book breaks this down into two strategies. The fathead strategy is trying to rank for broad, popular terms like accounting software. This is very competitive. The long-tail strategy is about ranking for thousands of more specific, less common searches, like accounting software for freelance hairdressers. In aggregate, these long-tail searches make up 70% of all search traffic. A powerful way to capture this traffic is through content marketing. This is where you create a blog or other resources that are genuinely helpful to your target audience. The story of Unbounce is incredible here. They hired a full-time blogger before they even had a product. For a full year, they blogged about the problems their future customers were facing. By the time they launched their product, they had an email list of over 5,000 eager customers waiting for them. Their blog was, and still is, their primary source of customer acquisition. OkCupid did the opposite. They were in business for 5 years before they started their blog, OkTrends. But once they did, their growth exploded. They used the data from their dating site to write fascinating, controversial articles about human behavior, like how your race affects the messages you get. These posts went viral, got them massive media coverage, and shot them to the #1 search result for online dating. Then there's a fascinating channel called engineering as marketing. This is where you use your engineering team to build free tools that are valuable to your potential customers. The classic example is HubSpot's Marketing Grader. You enter your website, and it gives you a free report on how well your marketing is doing. It's incredibly useful. Over 3 million websites have used it, and it generates a huge portion of the 50,000 leads HubSpot gets every single month. These tools are assets. You build them once, and they can bring you customers for years. The third theme could be called leveraging others. These channels are about tapping into existing communities and platforms. One of the most effective early-stage channels is targeting blogs. This is different from PR. This is about getting in front of the audience of niche blogs that your customers already read and trust. This was Noah Kagan's secret weapon at Mint. Before they even launched, his goal was to get 100,000 users in the first 6 months. He identified all the small to mid-sized personal finance blogs and reached out to them. He didn't just ask for a review, he offered to pay them a few $100s to sponsor their blog and give their readers early access. This strategy alone got them 40,000 users before the product was even live. Business development (BD) is another powerful channel in this category. BD is about creating strategic partnerships that benefit both you and your partner. Kayak, the travel search site, got its early traction from a partnership with AOL. Kayak powered AOL's travel search engine, which immediately sent them a huge amount of traffic. The key to BD is to stop thinking about what you need, and start thinking about what your potential partner needs. How can you help them achieve their goals? If you can answer that, you can create a powerful win relationship. Then there's existing platforms. This means building on top of platforms that already have hundreds of millions of users, like the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, Facebook, or even newer fast-growing platforms. Evernote is a master of this. Their strategy was to be one of the very first apps on every new platform. They were one of the first apps for Android. They were one of the first 100 apps in the Mac App Store. Being early meant less competition and a higher chance of being featured by the platform itself. That featured placement on the Mac App Store was their single biggest growth driver for an entire year. As the co-founder Alex Pachikov says, being early is a risk, but the initial push you get is free. Finally, we have the theme of building your tribe. These are channels focused on creating deep, personal connections with your users. This includes community building. This is about fostering connections between your users and turning them into passionate evangelists. Wikipedia is built on this. Jimmy Wales, the founder, described how he built the community that created the largest repository of human knowledge in history. It's about having a powerful mission that people want to be a part of. It's about being transparent and empowering your most passionate users to help lead the way. Speaking engagements, offline events, and trade shows are also part of this. Giving a great talk at a conference can instantly establish you as an expert and bring you a flood of interested customers. Sponsoring or running your own events, even small meetups, allows you to connect with your customers face-to-face. As Paul Graham says, in the early days, you have to do things that don't scale. You have to recruit users manually. These high-touch channels are perfect for that. So we have these 19 channels, and we have the Bullseye Framework to find the right one. But the book doesn't stop there. It also gives us a way to think about managing our efforts. This is where the concept of the critical path comes in. Your critical path is the shortest possible path to reaching your next big traction goal. First, you need a meaningful goal. Not just get more users, but something specific, like reach 1,000 paying customers, because at that point, you'll be profitable. Or get 100,000 daily active users, because at that point, you'll be able to raise your next round of funding. It has to be a goal that truly changes the game for your company. Once you have that goal, you work backward and identify the absolute necessary milestones to get there. These are the steps on your critical path. Maybe it's launching a key product feature, getting featured on a specific blog, and hiring a salesperson. Everything else is a distraction. Any activity you're considering, you ask a simple question: is this on our critical path? If it's not, you don't do it. This ruthless focus is what keeps a startup from getting pulled in a million different directions. It keeps your limited time and energy focused only on the things that truly move the needle. And this brings us back to the leaky bucket analogy. In the early days, when your product isn't quite perfect, your bucket has leaks. You can pour customers in the top through your marketing efforts, but many of them will leak out because the product isn't sticky enough yet. This is why the 50% rule is so important. As you work on traction, you're getting a steady stream of new users. By watching how they behave, you can see how leaky your bucket is. And as you work on your product, you're plugging those leaks. Your traction efforts give you the feedback you need to plug the right leaks. And once the bucket stops being so leaky, once you have what's called product market fit, that's when you can confidently step on the gas and pour resources into your chosen traction channel, knowing that the customers you bring in will stick around. That, in essence, is the journey the book takes us on. It starts with a radical idea that your product alone is not enough. It gives you a system, the Bullseye Framework, to find your path to customers. It hands you an arsenal of 19 creative weapons to use on that path. And it provides a mindset, the critical path, to keep you focused on what truly matters, making progress, gaining momentum, and achieving that beautiful, undeniable sign of life we call traction. Commentary. As we step back and look at the big picture that traction paints, what is the most powerful lesson we can take away from it? For me, it comes down to a single, liberating idea. The search for customers is not a mysterious art form. It is a science that can be learned and systematically applied. So many aspiring entrepreneurs, especially young ones, are filled with passion for their idea. They are builders, creators, and dreamers. But they often have a deep-seated fear or disdain for marketing. It feels slick, inauthentic, or just overwhelming. This book demystifies the entire process. It transforms marketing from a vague, scary concept into a concrete set of 19 distinct, understandable channels. It gives you a methodical process, the Bullseye Framework, that feels like running a series of scientific experiments. It gives you permission to test, to fail on a small scale, and to learn, rather than expecting you to have all the answers from day one. The book's true genius lies in its balance. On one hand, it's incredibly pragmatic and data-driven. Concepts like the quant-based marketing spreadsheet Noah Kagan used at Mint, or the focus on metrics like cost per acquisition, ground the advice in reality. It's not about wishful thinking. It's about finding what works and doubling down. But on the other hand, the book is a wellspring of creativity. The stories of Half.com renaming a town, or WePay's IceBlock, or Blendtec's Will It Blend videos remind us that getting attention is also about being remarkable, clever, and human. It's about creating a story that people want to share. What I find particularly relevant for today's world is the book's emphasis on the law of shitty click-throughs, a term coined by Andrew Chen. The idea is that all marketing channels become saturated over time. What worked yesterday might be crowded and expensive today. This means you can't just copy what the big companies are doing. You have to be constantly experimenting, constantly searching for the next untapped channel, the next creative strategy that your competitors are ignoring. This is where a startup's agility is its greatest strength. By taking each of the 19 channels seriously, especially the unconventional ones, you can find a competitive advantage where no one else is looking. So, how can you start applying these ideas today, right now? Even if your project is just a thought in your head, here are a few simple actions. First, honestly ask yourself, what is your current split? If you're working on something, are you spending all your time on the product? Try to consciously carve out time this week, even if it's just a few hours, to dedicate solely to thinking about traction. That simple shift is the first step in applying the 50% rule. Second, run a mini bullseye brainstorm. Take a piece of paper and write down the 19 channels. Don't worry about the details. Just spend 10 minutes brainstorming one wild idea for each. What's the craziest unconventional PR stunt you could do? Who are 3 niche blogs you could target? This exercise will stretch your thinking and help you see possibilities you didn't know existed. Third, embrace the mindset of cheap testing. Pick one idea from your brainstorm that seems interesting but a little scary. Then ask yourself, how could I test this for less than $100? Could you run a tiny Facebook ad campaign to a very specific audience? Could you sponsor a small meetup for the price of a few pizzas? The goal isn't to succeed. The goal is to learn. This book is more than a startup guide. It's a blueprint for anyone who wants to share their creation with the world. It teaches us that building something beautiful is only half the battle. The other half, the part that so many of us neglect, is the journey of connecting that creation with the people who need it. And that journey, as this book so brilliantly shows, is one of the most exciting and rewarding adventures of all. That was a deep dive into the core ideas of traction by Gabriel Weinberg and Justin Mares. We've walked through the highlights today, but I want to be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real adventure happens when you explore the territory yourself. The true value of this book is in the details, the specific tactics for each channel, the in-depth case studies, and the way a particular story might spark an idea that's perfect for you. This summary is your starting point, designed to help you see if this book's journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a bit of excitement or curiosity in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's about equipping yourself with a toolkit that can genuinely change how you approach building and sharing your ideas with the world. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary helpful and want to continue exploring the wisdom found in the world's most impactful books, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.